Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lisa Lord, and I am the Public Affairs Officer in the Public Affairs Department. Now, today's update will be on the Government Industrial School. Now, as you would know, over the course of the last week or so, the institution would have featured prominently in the media, specifically surrounding the case of a 14-year-old girl there. We're joined by the Minister of Home Affairs, Information and Public Affairs, Mr. Wilfred Abrams, the acting principal of the Government Industrial School, Mr. Ronald Brathwaite, the senior consultant psychiatrist at the psychiatric hospital, Dr. Brian McLaughlin, and members of the media. We will begin with Minister Abrams.
Thank you, Lisa. I want to thank all of you for being here this afternoon so we can update you as to the findings of our investigation. I want to thank the acting principal for being here and Dr. McLaughlin. They won't make statements, but at the end of my statement, we'll open the floor to questions, and there may be some answers they can help you with that I can't, so that's why they're here. So as promised, I have returned to you today with a more informed perspective on the incidents that led to the isolation, and some may say incarceration, of a juvenile at the Government Industrial School. First, I want to say this was the most unfortunate incident, and one where I personally called the parent and grandparent of the child involved to apologize for and on behalf of the institution, the government, and the people of Barbados. I also wish from the outset to correct the notion that my annoyance over this issue was triggered more by it being made public than by it actually having occurred. Indeed, there were two equally vexing occurrences that still have me troubled and deeply hurt and dismayed to this day. Investigations into the taking of the photograph are still ongoing, as that naturally took second place to the actual occurrence of a child being placed in solitary confinement. I've consulted with and received detailed written reports from all medical, health, and supervisory personnel involved, and I am satisfied that this incident was a consequence of several years of flawed practices and the absence of meaningful protocols, all of which must be addressed and brought under control as a matter of urgency. Solitary confinement is nothing new. I will not go further at this time, as I do not wish to further subject the young child and her other family and friends to further unnecessary discomfort and humiliation. But the circumstances that led to her actually being placed in isolation without critical pieces of clothing was considered, as of yesterday, up to yesterday, as far as we were concerned, that was consistent with normal practices in circumstances such as this. However, acting on the advice of independent professionals and agencies such as United Nations Children's Fund, I have given instructions that the age-old practice of children being detained in isolation under circumstances which are less than acceptable is archaic and unwarranted in this day and must cease as a matter of urgency. Actually, it must cease immediately. Child detention must be seen as a last resort. UN conventions are clear on this matter, and the input of experts such as Dr. Faith Marshall-Harris and the legal advisor Dr. Adrian Cummings will be retained and sought to advise on the transformation necessary. I have every confidence in the current staff complement at the Government Industrial School. I believe that they act and have acted in the past on the advice given and the protocols and practices as followed and encouraged by the powers that be at the policy level. All that to say this. It is now my responsibility to move with dispatch to garner new public confidence in the direction of the administration of the Government Industrial School. I want to thank the outgoing Board of Directors for its services and do express the hope that they can continue to serve in new capacities in the furtherance of the interests and welfare of our children. It is against this backdrop that I would like to turn a new page and start a new chapter in the oversight and management of the Government Industrial School in Barbados. As I said before, we will be calling on Ms. Faith Marshall-Harris, UNICEF, and attorney Dr. Adrian Cummings in leading the process of transformation in the structure and management of the facility under the new Board of Management of the Government Industrial School. This new board shall comprise the following persons: Reverend Dr. Lucille Beard as the chairman, Dr. Carl Ward as the deputy chairman, Ms. Stephanie Chase, Reverend Lennox Boyce, Ms. Cheryl Moore, and Mr. Kwame Bradshaw. The statutory appointments are the superintendent of prison or his nominee and a sitting magistrate. Along with the mentioned team, the board will also call in the experience of Dr. Adrian Cummings as legal advisor, UNICEF for policy guidance and best practices, and Ms. Faith Marshall Harris as a special resource person. There will always be a need for a secure facility to cater to children with challenges. But I believe everyone is on the same page that though necessary, such a facility should be geared towards providing children with all the emotional, psychological, academic, and recreational resources to enable the time spent to be productive and to the overall betterment of the students. The Ministry of Education has pledged its support to working with the board and its advisors to tailor the curriculum and to make it relevant to this generation of children, to give them the best chance possible on completing the residential program. With the new thinking that will be reflected in both the child protection legislation as well as the child justice bill, the new board is charged to develop policies and programs that reflect the philosophy that our children have rights and are a resource to be nurtured. To this end, I'll be meeting with the new board of JIS next week to impress upon them the need to work with UNICEF in reformatting and refusing the emphasis and priorities of, I will be meeting with the new board of GIS to impress upon them the need to work with UNICEF in reformatting and relooking the emphasis and priorities of that institution. I have personally not ruled out a name change or even a de-emphasizing of the institutional care. These are among recommendations I would like to see emanating from the new board under the chairmanship of Reverend Baird and in consultation with UNICEF and Dr. Faith Marshall Harris. Being in any state facility is necessarily a difficult experience, but we must do our best not to make it more challenging than it needs to be, lest we damage the lives and crush the spirits of those we are intending to help. In the past 48 hours, I've spoken with most persons involved in this unfortunate saga, and we are all agreed that we should move to put this incident behind us and move forward with a common sense of progressive purpose in the furtherance of the welfare and well-being of our children. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you for your forbearance. It has been a difficult week. It has been a week full of action from our side. I am satisfied that we are making tremendous progress in relation to overcoming the difficulties that we face at GIS. The situation is not ideal, but we have to work with what we have. And we will do better by our children and the wards under our care. I wish to open the floor to questions because I'm sure we can provide more pointed responses if we deal with the questions you ask. So the floor is open to questions. Anything is on the table.
Let me try that again. We have with us members of the media, of course. We have Lorna Jones from CBC, Kerry Gooding from Loop, and Barry Allen from The Nation. I'm sorry, Kerry, you were going ahead with the question.
I wasn't sure you could hear me. Good afternoon. So right now you're speaking about working with UNICEF going forward. There would have been actual discussions and reports done by UNICEF in the past, and persons feel as if doing this again will come to nothing. What can you say about this?
Has been going on. Sorry, can you hear me? A lot of work, Kerry, has been going on in the background. It is unfortunate the timing of this unfortunate incident, but up to Friday, the day before the story broke, we were in a long meeting with UNICEF, the Child Care Board, the Superintendent of Prison, the same Ms. Faith Marshall Harris, and we were trying to settle the policies to inform the new child protection legislation. What you may not know is we have been working with UNICEF the whole way. We've been working with UNICEF, and we have a new child justice bill. The reason that bill has not come forward and has not gone to Parliament so far is two reasons. COVID intervened to slow down our process, and the feeling of the Cabinet of Barbados was that if we go to debate a child justice bill and we pass a Child Justice Act. We're dealing with the child after the child has entered the system, after the child has become a part of the process, the judicial system. That is putting the cart before the horse. We need to also look at our child protection legislation and bring the child protection legislation first or at the same time as the Child Justice Act. The child protection legislation deals with all aspects of children. It deals with children in households. It deals with what age you can leave a child unattended. It deals with what constitutes abuse. It deals with the age of criminal responsibility. It is the whole thing. Probably one of the most holistic pieces of legislation we've ever embarked upon. It will be the most progressive piece of legislation in Barbados once it has passed. We settled the policies in relation to that last Friday, and those will likely come to Cabinet this Thursday this week, or if not this week, the week after. Once those have been agreed by Cabinet, we are also working with UNICEF to fast track the drafting of the legislation. So this is not kicking the can down the road. All of this was in train and being actively worked on. So some people, I've heard people saying that, there's a response, that we're reacting, right? It's not that we're reacting. A lot was in train that even had the incident not occurred, we would have seen a transformation in short order with respect to how we deal with children before entering the judicial system and after. As I said, the timing is unfortunate, but having said all of that, the incident occurred and a child was traumatized, and we have to take immediate steps to deal with that and prevent it from happening to somebody else, even while we still try to perfect the legislation on the next hand. So this is not a case, Kerry, of we're saying words and nothing is going to happen. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. I'm going to ask you to give us a couple of months and see the pudding.
Good afternoon, Minister Barry. I'll need your information. Couple questions for you. The first question is, you've now changed the board, but are you expecting, or will there be a review of the staff complement of the institution to determine if the issues that have come to light are actually systemic, or if this may have been a one situation where something went wrong?
Barry, I've spoken to every single member of the new board to come in. I have advised them there's a carte blanche. There's a lot that plagues the institution, and for us to move forward, we have to clear all of that. We have to regain the trust of the public of Barbados, which has been shaken by this incident. And there's a carte blanche. All outstanding complaints that have not been investigated are to be investigated. We are relooking the curriculum. As I said, I spoke to the Minister of Education up to today. We've had a number of discussions on it prior to now, and up to today, I spoke to her to confirm that we are going to relook the curriculum to make it useful and relevant to the students that are in there. In relooking the curriculum, it also involves relooking the staff complement. There may be some positions that need to be changed because they're irrelevant now. There may be new skill sets that need to be brought in. But we are going to strip the institution down, and rebuild that institution properly.
And my follow-up question, Minister, this isn't the first time there have been issues coming out of the institution. And this isn't the first time that an investigation would have been done with regards to actions within the institution. How can the public now, though, feel confident that when an investigation within this institution is done, that the results of that investigation will be brought to the public and brought to bear? Thank you.
Barry, let me ask you a question. Honestly, how many of y'all in the press actually felt that we'll be coming back to you with a report within a week? I have heard the entire week that politicians say they're going to do a report and they never do it, saying that we're going to do an investigation is a way to kick it under the carpet. Nothing is going to come of this. I heard that the entire week, Barry, when I was struggling to try to come to grips with what happened and to see and try to find out exactly what happened with this young lady and what way we as a government can help her, what way we have failed her, what way the system needs to do better. The fact that we are here now, less than a week after I said I would do an investigation and come back, the fact that we already have our concrete plans as to how to go forward, the fact that I can tell you that we are bringing new skill sets to the board, the fact that I can tell you we've made All right, let me even go further. I don't want to steal anybody else's thunder, and the question hasn't been asked. But my question to the principal was, I wanted to see every single protocol relating to the children in the government industrial school from the first time they step through the door to when they leave. Every single one. Every single protocol we look at, a lot of them we are scrapping. A lot of them we are improving. But equally, I don't advise myself, Barry, and the people there way better experience in this than I am. That's why we getting the assistance of Ms. Marsha Harris. That's why we're getting the assistance, the legal advice of Dr. Adrian Cummins. That's why we're actually working with UNICEF. Yes, protocols were recommended before, but UNICEF is fast track. We are looking now, we know what we want to do down the line, right? The structure that we have, Barry, is outdated. We know that. We are operating with very, very old laws in a Victorian type structure. That structure is outdated. We have to modernize it. So we have protocols as to where we want that to go. But even so, in that, it can't happen overnight. But even as we are working on that, every single thing that causes those children discomfort, we are trying to address it. It can't be easy for a child to be in a government industrial school. I was a lawyer for 25 years. I would not want to be away from my family. I would not want to be away from my parents. If you have to be away from your family or your parents for your own benefit, then it should not be any more difficult than it needs to be, and you should not be there one day more than you need to be. We are looking at all of them, Barry. We're looking at all of them. All I ask is that the public give us a chance now to see what we're going to do.
Okay, following up on that, at present, how many girls are within the unit, and what's going to happen to them while the investigation occurs? Like, while you're investigating, what happens to them now?
That's a twofold question. I'm going to turn that over to the acting principal for the specifics, and then the policy aspect of it I will deal with after he's answered that.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the question. Right. Currently, there are 6 girls in the government industrial school at Burroughs, and they are comprised of 3 committals and 2 remands.
Okay. So the difficulty here is that we need to consider each circumstance separately. There are some people who are calling for the shutdown of the government industrial school. That's not practical. That's not practical. But we can review each child's circumstance. If the professional advice having regard to what they were sent there for in the first place, whether what the court ordered, what the child care board ordered, what the probation department saw as necessary, if the reason for them being there has been satisfied, that they have obtained the maximum benefit that they can obtain from there, and it's in my discretion, then I will take the action that I need to take. For the persons who are on remand, that's a bit more difficult because they're not serving a sentence. My discretion to do things where somebody's serving a sentence doesn't necessarily extend to when somebody is there on remand from the court. The court has placed them with us for a period and asked us please to return them on a certain date. But I assure the public of Barbados, with the board, I am going to look at every single case that is currently at the government industrial school for girls, and we will make a decision. I do not want a child to be in there or in any facility a day longer than he or she needs to be. Just to show you how serious we are, the principal can tell you, just last week or 2 weeks ago, I reviewed the file of a number of boys in the institution who the reason for them being there is pretty much served. As far as I'm concerned, they've paid their debt to society, and I ordered the release of a number of the young men. And the intention at that point was to do the exact same exercise for the girls. As I said, it's really, really bad timing, and a lot of people are going to feel that this is being done in response to this current situation, but we were systematically going through a process. We're going to accelerate that process, and as early as next week, I plan to have the consultation with the board and to fast track so that anybody who does not have to be there is not there. But for those who the professional advice advises me that they need to be in a secure facility, and I'll be harming them rather than helping them by tampering with the situation, then I'm going to heed that professional advice, because I am not a psychologist. I am not a psychiatrist. I am not trained in this. I'm a lawyer, and I'm trying to help the kids and do what's right.
As you just mentioned, Minister, you said you're not a psychiatrist, but we do have the senior consultant psychiatrist at the psychiatric hospital, Dr. Brian McLaughlin, with us. Dr. McLaughlin, do you have anything to say at this time?
Good afternoon, and thank you. I just wish to say that having been asked by the Minister to be present, it's a reflection of our concern, certainly with regards to ensuring that the young people at the Government Industrial School are dealt with in as humane and as fair a manner. And we look forward to continuing to partner with the Government Industrial School as they continue to work on protocols and to work on improving the conditions there moving forward.
I have a question for Dr. McLaughlin. As it relates to the girls staying within that same environment and working with the same staff, even though the board is being changed, are you making any recommendations for those still in custody to be transferred to another unit?
We are not part of those discussions at this time.
Minister, can you speak to this?
Look, the danger in taking knee-jerk reactions and acting too hasty without full information is that you run the risk of the wrong choice. We are going to investigate all of the outstanding complaints. If there are complaints by the students themselves, they're the current students, we're going to investigate those first. And then we will make the decisions based on the information we receive. It would be reckless for me to stay at carte blanche. We're going to transfer all the students to other facilities. I don't know what risk factors are involved. I do not know why each student who is there was sent there by the court. I do not know the particular circumstances in relation to each student. And those need to be considered so we make the right decision. We are going to use all the resources at our disposal. We are going to speak to probation. We are going to speak to the psychiatric hospital. If the girls are under treatment for anything, we're going to speak to those concerned, and we will try to make the right decision in respect of each individual student. I am not prepared to make a blanket decision in relation to anyone or even the running of the facility at this point in time. We need to consider each situation on its merit.
Of your address that you had reached out to the parent of the young lady involved and apologize. In the past week, have you been in contact with any of the parents or wards or guardians of any other of these young ladies that are currently at the institution? And have they expressed any concerns with regard to how this incident would have affected their guardians or children?
Right, Barry, I thank you for that question, Barry. I have spoken to so many people who have passed through the boys' industrial school and the girls' industrial school in the last week. Some of them I knew. Some names were put to me as persons who had complaints. Some people reached out to me. And to be honest, one would expect a lot of the experiences to be similar, but not really. Every person had their own story to tell. A young lady that I spoke to today, this morning about 7 o'clock, she said to me that she credits the government industrial school with saving her life. That if not for having gone there and gotten some structure back into her life, I'm going to use her exact words. She by now would probably have about 5 children and be homeless. That's what she told me. But equally, there were some persons who had very, very negative reactions. Some people had, the experience differed from person to person. I can't give you even an average. There's some people who believe in the system, some people who don't. Some people who had positive stories. There's one person who went through there and is now an exceedingly successful business person. And she contacted me to tell me that as well. And she credits JS with saving her life. But then again, you have people who had negative experiences, Barry, as with anything else. So that's why I tell you it is important for me to not make unilateral decisions based on specific information or general information, sorry. That it is important for me to speak to every single person or to have an investigation in relation to every single person so we can ensure that their specific needs are being met. And if they're not being met there, what is the best way to deal with them so that their needs are met and we give them the care and treatment that the state is obliged to give to persons within our care.
Thanks for that, Mr. Abrams, but I still want to know, however, if parents or guardians of some of the ones who are currently there, if you've had any interaction with them this week about any particular concerns since this incident was brought to light.
Actually, no, and that's for a reason. A number of you in the press reached out to me over this week, and I indicated I would make my statement when I had all of the facts and we had completed our investigation, and I would come clean as to what the situation was. I also said I did not wish to be put in a position where I am prejudicing the investigation into this particular event or any other investigation. So no, I made a specific point of not reaching out to anybody who an investigator or the board might be looking to investigate their complaints. I did not want to prejudice it. I only reached out to the young lady's parents, her mother and her grandmother, after it was finished, to express, to express my sympathy and my sorrow for what happened, and to pledge that whatever the state needs to do to assist the young lady in getting back on her feet and trying to regain her position, that we are going to assist her with. And it was a very cordial discussion, and I think the mother felt very relieved at the end of it. But I only took that decision and spoke to her family after the investigation was complete. I do, however, Barry, once things have settled, plan to reach out to everybody. I want to go up there once the protocols allow and speak to every single student.
Do you have any more questions?
Principal, just can he clarify? Because he said there are 6 girls at Barrows, 3 committals, and 2 remands. That's only 5.
Sorry about that. There are 3 remands and 3 committals. Corrections.
And the last question for the minister, do you care to, in terms of the child protection legislation that will be coming to Parliament, can you give any indications about the new age of criminal responsibility that you're thinking about, and is wandering going to be coming off the law books?
Yes and no. So I cannot discuss the specifics of the legislation. As I told you, we settled the policy, but that policy still needs to be formally presented to Cabinet for Cabinet's approval. I cannot speak on the specifics of the legislation until that has been approved by Cabinet. Suppose I tell you something here now and Cabinet doesn't approve it. I can't be held to it. Now, that is in relation to that. In relation to wandering has to go. Everybody concerned accepts that wandering has to go. The Cabinet has accepted that wandering has to go. Actually, in the new child justice legislation, which is finished, wandering is one of those things that disappears. The whole concept of wandering as an offense, as a criminal offense, is abhorrent to me and to many of us. If we know what the history of it is and how it came to be there, right? I'm surprised that it is still there. Now, somebody may then ask, why don't we just wipe it off while we deal with the rest of the stuff? Because there's some of the principles that guide that that makes sense. We have to be, as a government, to be in a position to take a child into our care if that child is desperately in need and the child is running from a situation at home. What we need to understand is most of these children are victims. Children who are happy and who are in a stable family environment don't wander off from home, don't go missing, don't run away. So most of the children that come before the courts in relation to wandering have some deeper issue going on than they just decided to leave home and not come back. So there must still be some facility for the state to order assistance for those girls. All of that is going to be dealt with between the Child Protection legislation and the Child Justice Act. That will be covered entirely, and a new regime put in that allows us to give the assistance to the children without the aspect of criminalization or without stigmatizing them. So I can tell you as a fact that wandering is not in the future of the judicial system and the legislative makeup of Barbados.
I have a question for the deputy principal, a final question.
Go ahead, Barry.
Right, deputy principal, I have a very blunt question for you. Is the government industrial school at Barrows a safe place for children?
Yes, Barry, thanks for the question. The government industrial school is a safe place for all children that come to it. I must say, the government industrial school has been in existence since 1883, with respect to the boys, and 1912 with respect to girls. And as you would have heard, the minister said there are numerous boys and girls that would have come through the school, and their circumstances have been enhanced by being at the school. The school provides care for the children in many aspects. We do provide CXC examinations for the ones who have the mental capacity to do them. Actually, with the ones that the minister spoke about that recently went home, one of the persons who went home just left with 3 CXC subjects and awaiting results now on 2 further subjects. There are some within our fold that already have CXC subjects there while they're there. And we offer up to 8 CXC subjects through our educational program that currently exists. We also offer vocational trades and other support services for all that. And there you need to understand that the children, all children that come to government industrial school are different. The complement of the school, 60% of the complement of children at the government industrial school have mental health issues. So we have to rely also on the psychiatric hospital through the child guidance clinic and occupational therapy, and it's on a weekly basis that the children are assessed through that facility. We have also for psychologists attached to the school that help children with all the psychological issues that they might be experiencing, and social workers. Our staff is varied. Our staff is varied to address all the myriad of problems that confront us at the government industrial school. When a child comes to government industrial school, there is a very intense intake program that they'll go through, and it covers all the aspects that would, in fact, attribute to the child. It covers the biographical data, the data related to any problems they might have, their diet, any psychiatric problems that they would have. All these problems are captured within that document. Then within 72 hours after that, there is a student guide that is implemented through the social workers. And that guide deals with all the aspects that the children should be undertaking at the school. It covers how they access education, how they access medical services, their preferences, their personal development plans. It looks at the whole child, the child in totality, and caters a program for that child throughout its stay at the school. So the school goes a long way in assisting all residents that come to it that are sent there through the law courts of Barbados. Thank you.
And we're going.
Final question for you is this. Is there a level of dissatisfaction with the vetting process that would lead to the hiring of personnel at the government industrial school at Barrows? Or are you satisfied the vetting process that obtains is a good enough one?
Barry, the government industrial school, the selection of staff is handled by central government. I cannot tell you what the vetting process is. I am not responsible for the selection or hiring of staff. I can't answer that one for you, Barry. I can't answer that one for you.
I have two questions for the acting principal. One would be, is there a transition program after children leave the school? Like, what happens immediately after? Do you follow up with them to make sure that they transition from how they were operating at school to at home? And the other question is, what is the level of recidivism? Like, how many children do you find leave and return?
The question. Okay. When children leave government industrial school, there is a transition program. In fact, we are partnering and we have partnered with the probation department where we look at diversion and the transition program that is in place now, conjoint with government industrial school and the probation department. Children, when they go out of the school, they are monitored and followed up with for 2 years or until they reach their 19th birthday, whichever comes first. Now, children come, the age of criminal responsibility as it is current is 11. And children cannot spend their 19th birthday in the school. However, you have to come to the school before you're 16 years old, because if you're 16 and commit an offense, then you're treated as an adult. So there is a pre-release program in place at the government industrial school, and the social workers follow up children when they go out into the community for 2 years or until they reach age 19, whichever comes first. We have now partnered with probation in the transition program, where they now will monitor and be part of that program in following the children with other programs in the community that are akin to what happens with the probation department. The other part of your question, could you repeat the other part of the question for me, please?
What level of recidivism do you see in terms of girls or boys coming back in?
But the sentencing policy at the government industrial school is one which sometimes curtails that. We have very, very low recidivism back into government industrial school, because the sentencing at the school is for no less than 3 years, no more than 5 years. So I think that magistrates normally, based on your age, your sentence would reflect. And once you leave the school and you're over 16, then you won't find your recidivate back into the school. Also at the school we have a mentorship program that is fully enshrined and is monitored through the University of the West Indies to help and assist the residents while they're there. They also have that program to assist them, and it is private. The school does not know what they discuss with their particular mentor, and they have access to their mentor throughout the time that they're there. Thank you.
We have a question now from Lorna Jones from CBC.
Yes. Hi, good evening, everyone. What I'm wondering is, in terms of the numbers at the school, at the institution at the moment, how is it comparing to other years?
I would tell you, ma'am, that when I first went to the school, the numbers at the school used to be up in the 50s and 60s. The numbers have reduced, and they have reduced because now I think the powers that be see the relevance in not keeping a resident in school for any extended time over the time that they should be there. Now, you might get 3 years, a 3-year sentence or a 5-year sentence at the school. However, the law provides that if you have spent 18 months of your sentence and the school feels that your needs would be better suited and be carried on in the community, that a recommendation can be made to the minister for early release. We have been using that medium more aggressively in the school, and the ministers have also bought into it, because you would understand that someone is sent to the school for wandering or refractory behavior and is sentenced for 3 years or 5 years, and you have to ask yourself, is it fair and just? But that is what the system is, and that's what the law provides for. However, if that person have the ability and have shown that what is happening with them can be further be met in the community, and their plans, the follow-up plan, we don't just release them like that. There's a follow-up plan to have them placed in the community into something structured. Then we make the recommendation to the minister so that they could get back to their normal life in the community as soon as humanly possible. You would find that the residents in previous times might have stayed longer because most of them stayed closer to the time of their sentence, but that no longer prevails at this particular time. So the numbers have been being considerably reduced because of this.
Okay, and going back to Minister Abrams, just going back to the protocols, is there an emphasis going to be placed on retraining for the staff? I know you said you're looking to turn a new page as it relates to the institution. So what about training for staff in terms of how the children are treated and how they interact with them?
We are looking at every single aspect of both of these schools. And that's the reality. Everything is on the table. There are no written protocols in relation to how we deal with situations, and that sometimes causes issues because discretion then comes in. One person might deal with it in one way, somebody else might deal with it in another way. Right? We need to have certainty in exactly how we deal with each situation. And that is what we're consulting with UNICEF on. We in discussions with the psychiatric hospital, all of the stakeholders to try to get the best protocols for all the students, and that those protocols then filter to the staff as well. The reality is there's going to be no wiggle room. This is how you deal with a situation, and the staff will be trained accordingly. What happened to the young lady was something that came out of discretion. There was space for discretion, and that must never happen again. The rules need to be set. Everybody needs to know exactly what they are and what you do in a particular circumstance. And if you then don't follow those that are spelled out chapter and verse, then you're going to have to answer for what you did. But yes, we are going to train the staff. We are relooking the school. We're going to make life better for the students. For me, if you have to be there and you have no choice, then we have a duty to you to make your stay there as productive as it can be so that you get the maximum benefit from the program to which the court has sentenced you.
Are there any further questions? If there are no further questions, Minister, would you like to give some closing remarks?
This is a very unfortunate situation. And a lot of persons have expressed concern as to what happened. A lot of people have offered assistance. There have been lots of constructive offers. There have been the attacks. But we are going to take every comment and every suggestion and look at each comment, each suggestion, each offer of help. And we don't know it all. We're going to take the advice from the professionals, but at the end of this entire process, I would like to feel that the confidence would return to the system, that people can be certain that when children are entrusted to the state, that the children get the best possible care that the state can provide for them. So once again, to the young lady, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what happened to you. I'm sorry for how you feel about it. I'm sorry at all the publicity that came of this. I mean, you don't deserve that. And we will do as much as we can as a state to provide you the resources that you need to get past this unfortunate situation. So, thank you.
And thank you, Minister. That's Minister of Home Affairs, Information and Public Affairs, Wilfred Abrams. We also had the acting principal of the Government Industrial School, Mr. Ronald Brathwaite, and the senior consultant psychiatrist at the psychiatric hospital, Dr. Brian McLaughlin, as well as members of the media. And thank you for joining us. Good afternoon.